Welcome to the Build Your Private Practice podcast, a space for Canadian therapists who want to support others, make an impact, and build a sustainable practice that works for them too. I'm your host, Liane Wood, a registered psychotherapist, group practice owner, and business mentor, and I'm here to help you build a private practice that allows you to keep doing the work you love without burning out. Because the people who need your help the most are counting on you, and you deserve a practice that supports you while you support them. Let's dive in. Well, welcome back to the Build Your Private Practice podcast. I'm your host, Liane Wood, and I'm so glad you're here. Today's conversation is one that I have been looking forward to. We're talking about something that comes up over and over again with the practitioners that I work with, and that's niching. Finding the work that feels like yours, the clients you're meant to serve, and the practice that actually reflects who you are, not just what you were trained to do. So my guest today is Stacey Sanderson. Stacey is a registered psychotherapist and an RSW based in Peterborough, Ontario, and the owner of Sanderson Psychotherapy. She's a solo practice owner and educator and someone who's built her business around a clear vision and mission. And she's going to walk us through how she got there. What I love about Stacey's story is that it isn't a straight line. It's the kind of journey a lot of us are quietly in the middle of right now, where you know something needs to shift, but you're not quite sure what it looks like yet. So if you've been wondering whether niching is right for you or how to even begin moving toward more meaningful work, this episode is for you. So Stacey, welcome to the podcast. I'm so happy to have you here.
Thank you for that really lovely intro, and I'm thrilled to be here with you today. I'm looking forward to the conversation.
Amazing. Well, before we dive in, for anyone who is hearing your name for the very first time, can you give us a little snapshot of who you are, where you practice, and what your work looks like right now?
Sure. So, my big vision and mission really is to help those who are naturally empathic, highly sensitive, gifted, lots of helpers, lots of healers, because the world needs them and the world needs you. So that's really the scaffolding and the reason why I do what I do.
Amazing. Amazing. Well, I'd love to start where I think every good story starts,
Sure.
right? At that turning point.
Oh, yes.
I think, you've built something really intentional with Sanderson psychotherapy. And I imagine there may have been a moment, or maybe there was a season where something might have shifted for you. So could you take us back there about what was happening in your practice before things started to change?
Yes. And I was thinking about this today, actually.
Okay.
So in 2006, 2007, I was one of what we call the pioneer mental health clinicians with the Peterborough Family Health Team.
Mhm.
And so that's 20 years ago. I'm just bringing that, just being aware of that. And in that role, we were very much generalists, right? This is well before we really had the establishment of the psychotherapy college.
Mhm.
Oh, not too far before. That's not true, but because I joined in 2009. But we were trying to help everyone and do everything. And, we started out with treating anxiety and depression and stress. But what happened for me was I started noticing patterns in some of the women I was seeing and some men. So that started around that same time. And I went back and did a bunch of postgraduate work on personality pathology
Mm.
and did my master's around that in that same time frame. And the data that I was gathering was that there was a group of women and some men
Mhm.
who were being referred for stress, anxiety, depression, and complex or autoimmune illness.
Okay. Mhm.
And so what I did was start taking attachment histories
Mm.
And so that attachment history now lives as what I call the attachment blueprint in the book I wrote. So
Hmm.
that translated to that piece of information. But these were people who were very giving for all intents and purposes. They had codependent traits. They they played small in some ways. They had lost parts of themselves in their core identity, and they had either come from a highly narcissistic family system or had partners who had narcissistic traits, or both. And often
Mm.
it's both.
Yeah.
And so this is a real reverse engineered way of looking at this issue because often a lot of people in this field get hyper focused on what are all the traits of narcissism? That is not where I began.
Okay.
I began looking at this group of people who had these things in common
Hmm.
and started gathering resources for them and giving them a chance to make sense of it, not necessarily from just their experience, but from the greater systemic context of what they had experienced and through the lens of complex trauma.
Mm.
Because these are people who not only would people in their life have told them that they had mental health issues or they quote unquote needed to get help, but they then internalized that. And then the medical system, because I worked with family physicians at the time,
Hmm.
completely repeated that pattern. And so the turning point was when I wanted to work more exclusively on that. At the time, I was working 3 days a week, teaching meditation, 2 days in the therapy practice, at the clinic where I worked. I went to human resources at the family health team and said, I need to work part-time. There
Hmm.
are all these things I really want to do and I can't do them if
Hmm.
if
Yeah.
I'm in this commitment. They did not meet me halfway, despite being the most senior clinician. And so I quit.
Okay. Hmm.
And there were, and in the thread of the story about narcissism, this
Hmm.
also was a highly narcissistic system that I was working in, right? So
Hmm.
I
Hmm.
could see all of those signs. So I quit and launched my practice at the end of 2018.
Okay. Hmm.
Okay.
Hmm.
So I was doing what we all do, maybe not what new psychotherapists do now, but I
Mm.
was doing some EAP work. I had been headhunted by Sun Life. I was doing some insurance-based work, but slowly building, that niche. And
Hmm.
then in just after the pandemic, just as it was coming to an end, I myself went into a very high level coaching program with a coach who used to be a psychotherapist,
Hmm.
with a group of women who many of them used to be psychotherapists and who really drilled down their niche in order to help people and who learned ways of getting that marketing message out there. So
Hmm.
really learning sales, marketing, content, all of the things that we are not good at and we struggle with. And
Hmm.
so those were the two, I would say, pivotal moments to get to this place of niching.
Wow, that
Mhm.
is just, I think, such a relatable place to be. As you're telling your story there, Stacey, and I'm hearing, you being in this system, right? In this role, and what you're noticing, how you're feeling, like noticing this passion that you have or this interest that you have and working with a specific group of people, not being able to do it there, right?
Mhm.
And then the courage that must have taken for you, right?
It, it was part courage, part, what do my kids say? Midlife crisis.
Ah.
It was part courage, but also really feeling, if I can say it this way, really feeling called, right?
Mm,
Really feeling called to work with this group
yeah.
in a different way, in a way that's not in the confines of funding mechanisms, for example,
Hmm.
and um, also really seeing where there was room for someone to come in from this place of understanding narcissism and narcissistic abuse from a empowered, holistic way of looking at it, right? There's a lot of folks out there in the podcast space, in the internet space, YouTube, all of that, who are very much, taking this scorched earth, wounded warrior kind of stance. And I wanted to have a slightly different approach and also had, the academia after 20 some odd years of research to back up what I was doing, and then taking all of that and creating a very robust, I've called it a curriculum, I've called it a program. It now is just the way that I work with people.
Mhm.
But this 3, 6, 9 month way that people can commit to really doing the work where they're not caught up in their narrative and their story. So that curriculum actually became the book.
Mm,
And because I was teaching at Fleming here in Peterborough through COVID. It was absolutely terrifying because none of us had worked online before.
right.
But I learned all of those skills, right? Of, curriculum creation, content creation, presenting it online. And as like painful as it was, I learned a lot from being able to do that. So there's
Um,
this sort of integration of those experiences.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Amazing. Well, I'd love to, just talk about niching a little bit because
Sure.
I know that, this is a word that really lands differently for everyone, right? Like some therapists and practitioners will hear the word niche and they feel excited. And there are others who feel restricted or worried that they'll somehow cut themselves off from clients,
Yes.
right? So
Yes.
when you started leaning into your niche, what did that process look like for you? Like, was it something exciting? Did you feel worried about it? Like, how was it for you?
No, I mean, I'd spent many years working as a generalist.
Hmm.
I mean, we saw everything where I used to work. And, I have the alphabet soup after my name, right? In terms of all of the certifications.
Yeah.
Um, but I remember taking some courses with Allison per year, who does what you do in the United States. And she was speaking about the importance of niching. And I mean, I think that if you began as a social worker, as I did, I mean, being a social worker is more than an academic grounding and a
Hmm.
professional identity. It is profound conditioning about how you're supposed to work based on the code of ethics and the things we learn in our Bachelor of Social Work program, which is that we should help everyone. And
Hmm.
I still struggle with that idea, right?
Okay. Hmm.
But we can't. We reasonably can't meet the needs of everyone and need to see where we can be the most helpful. And I think for people starting out, that makes your life a whole lot easier as opposed to being on a big learning curve all
Hmm.
the time.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I'm not saying you should do it out of the gate, but figure out what you're passionate about, what your calling is, where your curiosity is, and then really follow that, right?
Yeah.
Because your clients are going to feel that. And you said this in the intro, and it really resonated with me. Then you're also working with the clients you should be working with. They're
Hmm.
seeing you. There's a beautiful congruence. There's an alignment in
Yeah.
the work, and there's a deep trust. That's a hard sell in the population I work with sometimes. But yeah, it isn't something that I was intentional about. It just flowed organically
Mm.
with all of that research that I was doing and all of the work I was putting into it. I mean, occasionally I'll see someone who has anxiety or depression, sometimes, complex trauma. But the group of people can be far broader than what might first meet the eye, right?
Mm. Thank you
Mhm.
for saying that.
You're
You
welcome.
know, I really believe that, like, that, like, it's, we sometimes think of a niche as being like this big and just, very, very narrow. And yet, there's so much richness in most
Yeah.
niches that there's a lot of variety. And you hit on something else here just a moment ago when you were talking about, that switch from being the generalist to being more of a specialist and having
Yes.
that niche. So I wonder, when you think back, what did you have to let go of in order
Oh,
to
yes.
move towards your niche? Because I think that's the part that we don't talk enough about, right? That
Yes.
niching usually means saying no to something.
Okay, I'm coming in hot. You have to let go of the delusion that you can help everyone,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
right?
Right. Mm-hmm.
It can, to me, that's a fairly, one way, fairly solid one way ticket to burnout. If you think that you can help everyone. And I mean, my background is in healthcare. I mean, I've worked in healthcare a really long time. And so, the grounding was in you help whoever's in front of you.
Yeah.
But I think that thread of interest and curiosity has been there the whole time. And I think the second thing to let go of is that your door has to be open to everyone in when you have a belief system rooted in scarcity, right? I think that's an
Mm-hmm.
aspect of that as well. So
Mm-hmm.
if we operate from a place of scarcity, then we may try to take on too much or to offer help where maybe perhaps we're not the best person to help.
Mm-hmm.
hmm This comes up for me all the time with kids, right? I get asked to see kids all the time. I
Yeah.
don't have any training in working with children at
Mm-hmm.
all, so I don't see them, right? I don't see them in my practice.
Yeah. Ah, that's a beautiful way to put that. I like the getting rid of the idea, or I think you use the strong word delusion, getting rid of
Yes,
the delusion that you can help everyone, right? And that place of scarcity as a second point, and that when you're in that place of scarcity and thinking you have to take whatever comes your way, um, whether you're a fit to work with them or not. And I also have not worked with children in my practice intentionally. And oh, just the thought of it, I'm like going, oh goodness, I might, I'm not sure the kid would be well off if they were working with me. I'm not specifically trained in that.
exactly.
Mhm.
There's nothing in my training that included, a developmental perspective or any
Right.
of those things. And so I can speak a little bit more authority around parenting.
Yeah.
I could do that, and I do sometimes, but I think it is perfectly okay as well to say, I don't like this and this doesn't interest me. It's okay to say that too,
Yeah.
whatever that might be.
Right. Right. So for the therapist who's listening to us right now,
hmm
who maybe hasn't really thought about their practice this way before, who, maybe has just thought of it as, I'm a therapist, I see clients. Where would you tell them to start?
Do a little bit of brainstorming about what interests you. What are the books on the bedside table? What are you drawn to, in terms of podcast content, YouTube content? What are the clients that you have on your calendar that you get excited to see,
Mm-hmm.
right? Follow what fills you up or what gives you a sense of anticipation, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's not only okay to work because with solely those clients, because the flip side of niching is the clients you're seeing, right?
Yeah.
It's okay to decide that you'd like to work with a particular type of client. I work from a very clear ideal client profile. I know that makes therapists very nervous, right? But
Mm-hmm.
it means I'm showing up in the best possible level of energy and consciousness and meeting that client where they're at,
Mm-hmm.
right? Which is, really helps the client considerably, right?
Yeah.
Niching also means you're simultaneously offering that expert grounding for the client,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and, for example, I don't see people who have issues with eating, right? Now, I did a little bit, but that's not, as you could say, my zone of genius,
Mm-hmm.
right? So
Mm-hmm.
you have to figure out what that is and be okay with it, right? And it's not for everyone, but I think that if you surveyed a bunch of therapists, you would see that there is a particular presenting issue that they're working with more than any other.
Right.
Mhm.
Right. Yeah. I want to just, draw a little bit of a line that I
Yeah.
think is important because you've talked about, you didn't use these exact words, but how it was coming into my mind was that, you were talking about this inner alignment piece, right?
Yes.
The meaning, the mission. But you also said something that I think is really powerful, which is, that this kind of alignment leads to better outcomes for clients. So can you talk about that connection and what changes
Yes.
for your clients when you're
Yes.
showing up in work that feels really aligned?
So this is the next step up of therapeutic alliance.
Mm,
Right? A therapeutic alliance is, the basement. And what I'm talking about is the second floor or the attic, right? If I can use that analogy.
hmm
But the alignment is when the client is really, really knows you, really likes you, really trusts you, and
hmm
is ready to do the work at the level you can bring it, right?
hmm
I just had a client I'd been seeing for quite some time. She went off and read my book and came back and said, you do this really interesting EMDR. I think I'm ready for that, right? That's part of the work I do,
Yeah.
right? So she'd gone off and thought about it, did some of her own work and came back, and there was a big alignment shift today,
Mm-hmm.
right? A real shift in her level of readiness. All of you get to decide what that looks like. You get to define that. I'm saying a little bit of mine, but all of us get to determine that, get to, think about the clients that are going to get the best benefit from what we bring.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, that makes so much sense. And in
Mhm.
a way, it's almost like the work becomes more honest.
Oh, yes. Didn't even think of that. Well done. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. If someone came in to see me about something I know absolutely nothing about, honesty has left the room. Right?
Yes, exactly, exactly. And you've also expanded beyond one-to-one therapy. And I know you've alluded to it a little bit in our conversation already when you're talking
Yes.
about a book and courses.
Yes.
You've
Yeah.
really expanded beyond one-to-one therapy. And I know that that is something a lot of our listeners are curious about. So can you share a little
Sure.
bit about what that's looked like for you and
Yes.
how it connects back to both your niche and the mission that you've built?
Yes. So, I also have a coaching platform,
hmm
and that is, purely basically the program I have. That, and then there's an integrated offering of everything that's in the coaching program with the most relevant parts of the therapy. I've done a couple of times, I've run that as a group program.
hmm
But one of the interesting things that's happened is the number of therapists who come into the free workshops I offer. So I offer a free workshop once a month, um, and on a variety of different topics. Who that's attracted has been a lot of therapists.
hmm
And so, just last week, I did an international masterclass on using EMDR and IFS for those who have experienced narcissistic wounding because there was such a need. So someone, this lovely woman in Spain did an internet search looking for someone who does this work and found me.
hmm Mm-hmm.
So it is the evolution of niching into being a subject matter expert, which is not something I'm comfortable with, but it is the outward facing identity that I'm getting used to, and it's okay.
Mm-hmm.
But it's it's been really, really interesting to expand beyond the therapy dyad work, which I still do, but
Mm-hmm.
in a slightly, it's being offered in a slightly different way.
Got
So
it.
that
Got it.
I hopefully I answered that okay.
I think you did, yeah.
Okay.
Now,
Yes.
I wanted to ask you a question that you mentioned you would love to be asked because
Okay.
I think the answer matters.
Okay.
What inspires you, Stacey, and what keeps you doing this work?
Oh, what a great question. Seeing clients become empowered
Mm,
and stepping into the fullest version of themselves. It is this journey back to, as Carl Jung would say, their true self,
yeah.
right?
Hmm.
Not the this person is broken in this way and then therefore they need this intervention, but this person is a whole full person just as we see them. Some of that's been lost in their relationships and in their thought processes.
Hmm.
How do we get that back for them?
Mm, yeah. So it's that like almost transformation, but a restorative
Yes,
transformation,
yes,
right? Yeah.
yes. I
Definitely.
struggle with that word a little. I
Mm,
struggle with the, but the work I do is intended to create that transformation. Yes.
mhm. Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. Now, what about on the harder days? Because,
Yes.
we all have them. What do you come back to? What reminds you why you do what you do?
I think the harder days are where I might doubt myself, and then that energy goes right out there into the world.
Yeah.
Or a harder day might be if I've got a prospective client and they're really grilling me on what my experience and expertise is. I'm
Yeah.
getting better with that, right? Then I
Hmm.
just tell myself they're not your client, like these are not ideal clients to work with.
Hmm.
On harder days, I remember, those relationships with clients that are really aligned. But a harder day, I think, is when there's friction, between myself and a client, or friction between myself and my message, or friction because, I've gone into old conditioned parts of myself that have decided to run the show that day. Right?
Aw, thank you for your honesty and transparency,
Yes, of
Stacey.
course.
Seriously, right? When you're talking about having those difficult conversations with clients and feeling a little bit uncertain, I mean that this is a level of vulnerability that not everybody is, willing to share. So I just want to take a moment to honor you and to thank
Thank
you
you.
for that because um our community needs to hear that, right? Like just because, you're talking to somebody or you're listening to somebody who you think has like quote unquote made it doesn't mean they don't struggle. They don't have those moments of self-doubt, right? So thank you for that.
The
Um,
more visible we are in our work, the more likely that's going to happen. And
mhm.
so doing some work, having coaching or seeing a therapist in terms of working through um, visibility fears that might keep you stuck can be very helpful.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay. Maybe the last big question.
Okay.
If someone is listening right now and they're somewhere in the middle of all of this, right? They know their practice doesn't quite fit anymore and they sense there's maybe a deeper why that they haven't tapped into yet, but they don't quite know where to start. What would you say to them?
Don't go it alone.
Hmm.
Find a therapist who's already done it, find a mentor, find a coach, whatever works for you, whatever's comfortable to on some days hold your hand and on some days kick your butt, right? Like
Hmm.
don't try and figure it out by yourself. If there's a block, if you feel stuck, Get someone to help you with that. There is such a richness in not trying to figure it all out by yourself.
So much truth there, right? And I think, when we're in private practice, we can become very siloed. So, that idea of connecting with
Yes.
others and that mentorship, that coaching, just those conversations. I think that's such grounded advice. Thank you.
And don't be afraid to come out of the woodwork about that stuff, right?
Yeah.
Like it surprises me that there aren't more groups of us having these kinds of conversations,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
I'm not quite sure what that's all about. Like I think it is absolutely necessary to talk about some of the things that we get hung up on and
Hmm.
support one another through it, right? My favorite thing is supporting other therapists, right? Or one of my favorite things.
Amazing. Stacey, you mentioned that you have a compassionate self-inquiry exercise that you'd love to share with our listeners. Can you tell us a little bit about that, what it is, and how it can help?
Sure,
Mhm.
sure. So this is an exercise that I use with clients because they have so much self-doubt,
Mm,
because, they've been made to question things that they know to be true. And I do a lot of work in the divorce world, working with divorce coaches, lawyers, mediators, that kind of thing. And so when I've done some guest spots, in those speaker summits, this is the gift I give away. But it's
mm,
generic enough that it can be a tool to help anchor you into some of these bits of inner wisdom that we're talking about, right? Move you through some of those stuck places that we're talking about. And when you're being super hard on yourself, doing that from a place of compassion is really key, right? Bringing, as I love
absolutely.
to say, your kind, wise adult self into that conversation.
Ugh, that's beautiful.
Thank you.
We're going to link that to that in the show notes so that it's easy for everyone to grab. And now, if someone wants to learn more about you, your practice, or work with you in some way, what is the best place for them to find you?
My website, and that's just my name, right? So, staceysanderson.ca.
Okay, perfect. We'll have that in the show notes too.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, it's a one-stop shop for
Amazing.
all the information. If people want to get invitations to those free workshops, that's the place to do that. You can see what's on offer that particular month or a month ahead. Read blog posts, all of the video and speaker links are there, podcast links are there, so people can see what interests them.
Amazing. Stacey, thank you so
Oh,
much for
pleasure.
being here today, and for sharing your journey so openly. This has been, I think, such a meaningful conversation. So thank you.
My pleasure. You're welcome. Thank you.
Well, what a conversation. I hope that you are walking away from this episode the way that I am, with a little more permission to slow down and ask the bigger questions about your own practice, the vision, the mission, the meaning underneath the day to day. Now, if Stacey has said something that has landed for you, I'd love for you to take her up on the compassionate self-inquiry exercise. The link is in the show notes along with everything else you need to connect with her. And if you know another practitioner who's in that messy middle right now, wondering what's next, sensing a shift, send this episode their way. It might be exactly what they need to hear this week. And as always, thank you for being here. Thank you for the work you're doing and I'll see you next Monday. Take care. Thanks so much for tuning in to the Build Your Private Practice podcast. If today's episode resonated with you, I'd love it if you'd subscribe, leave a review, or share it with a fellow Canadian therapist who needs this. And remember, the work you do matters. Keep showing up, keep holding space, and keep building a practice that works for you. If you're looking for practical tools or support to grow your practice with more clarity and confidence, head to buildyourprivatepractice.ca. There's lots waiting for you there. I'll see you next time.